Okay. Okay, Evangelium Vitae. Evangelium is the gospel of life, Vitae. And this is sort of my favorite Pope, John Paul II. He was Pope for about 26 years. If you're in class, I have a picture of him over there next to Mother Teresa. And in the picture, he's very, very old. And in his old age, he showed us how to live uh, with age and how we should respect those of us who are older. And he started the youth assemblies all over the world. Uh, and the theme of it was salt and light. And we have a Catholic television station called Salt and Light. So this is Pope John Paul II, Evangelium Vitae, or simply Gospel Life, or another way of saying it is simply Choose Life. So first question, the encyclical reaffirms the value of all human life is uniquely made in the image and likeness of God. So the first thing we must always start with when we come to religion now, and the encyclical, is that we are all special. We are all valuable. And we have this image and likeness of God within us, our intellect and our will, from God, by God, by the fact that we exist. This is not something that's dependent on someone else to give us, but for others to accept. We already have it. No one can take it away from us. They can call you names, but it's not going to change who you are. They may try to beat you up and break your bones. It's still not going to take away the dignity you have inside of you. They can pass laws and deny you rights. Doesn't mean that you're, in the eyes of God, you're special. My favorite motto is, you're great, God doesn't make junk. Others can make you feel like you're junk, but in the eyes of God, you're not. And so no matter what happens to you, no matter what situations you find yourself in the eyes of God, and in the eyes of those who love you, your parents, your brothers, sisters, your friends, you're still important, you're still valuable, you're still special, you're so unique. Because you have within you a soul which is the image of God. You have something of God within you, what we like to call God's fingerprints. God created you, and the fingerprints are still there. Okay? Second thing that encyclical appeals to, encyclical simply means a letter. So a papal encyclical is the Pope writing a letter to everyone. That's all it is. It appeals to work together for justice and solidarity. So it's a call for us to be fair, respectful with each other. So I have the scales of justice. It's supposed to be blind. So you don't judge people based on what you see. And to show solidarity, which means be together. We're a human family. And in essence, we're all in this together. Okay? So our hands are locked together. And the root word of solidarity is to be solid together. If we link our hands together, no one can break into this group or through this group. We're strong together. The encyclical challenges us to build a new culture of life, what it calls an authentic civilization of truth and love. So whatever's happening in society, make sure that truth and love are the foundations of society. Everything revolves around these two ideas. What is truth? Can we handle the truth? Are we willing to look for the truth? That's another matter. What is love? What kind of love? Authentic love, or love that tends to call it love, but in fact is only directed towards utility and pleasure. You're using people. Another question. Martin Luther King Jr. Nobel Prize acceptance speech in 1964, just before being assassinated. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. That is why right temporarily defeated is stronger than evil triumphant. Okay? Truth and love liberates. Anything that is not truthful and not loving imprisons into what Socrates called a cave of illusions. You may think you're free, you may think you're in a loving situation, but you're not. Now, truth and love have to do with life. Things that are against life, against truth, against love, are first and foremost murder. It's one of the commandments, thou shalt not kill. So when there's murder happening in society, then truth and love is lost. Peace is lost. And murder, again, is not simply physically killing someone. You can kill people's spirit. You can kill them intellectually. Hey, you stupid. Emotionally, sad face. Socially, gossip, cyberbullying. They disappear. They're embarrassed. They're ashamed because everyone's talking about them. Okay, so there's more than one way to kill a person. Actions opposed to life itself, genocides. So we have, start from the left, Nanjing. That's the slaughter of people in Nanjing, which is the northern capital of China, by the Japanese soldiers. Ukraine, the Holocaust. Bosnia, Rwanda, Darfur, Cambodia, and Pol Pot regime, Armenian genocide, etc. And under each of these tombstones is never again, and again it happens.
Good morning, Mr. Kara. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Parvani.
Yeah, it's me.
Hey, hi, welcome.
Thank you. I have a question for you. I really like what you're showing here. What do we do with people who constantly deny some of these genocides? How do we deal with this?
Excellent question. And this wasn't fixed, okay? Welcome, Mr. Parvani. He's my buddy. So every teacher has a buddy. So let's take the Holocaust deniers first. There are people who say it never happened. It's a figment of the imagination. Same thing with Armenia. It's illegal in Turkey to say that there was an Armenian genocide. And by saying that, you will be put in prison. So in the previous slide I showed you, people can deny things happen. Remember we talked about Socrates and ignorance? And they can walk around and rationalize things in their own mind and say this never happened. But we have to keep asking questions, we have to show evidence, and we have to keep looking for the truth of what happened. And just because you delete something in a social fabric doesn't mean it didn't happen. Just because you block it on the internet and don't want people to talk about it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Okay, so governments can deny truth, but the truth is still there. And if you stop searching, then it's what Socrates talked about, and we talked about in our class, then your moral weakness is your ignorance. Not that you're stupid. Ignorance means you don't know, you don't want to know, you don't want to look for it. If you know people in these tragedies, and you show evidence that this happened, you start to break down this ignorance, and therefore you start to discover that what they're saying is simply creating shadows, images of truth. Therefore, you're nothing like what Socrates said we're prisoners in this cave that they're trying to manipulate us. So search for truth is always important. And there are deniers of these situations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Do you want to add anything?
No, that was great. Thank you. That was great. Thank you.
Now, if you guys go last year to the Vishnu Mandir, the Hindu temple, there's a museum of civilization, and they have a whole wall dedicated to all of the genocides that have occurred. A lot of them we don't even know. Like most people don't know about Armenia, or I think it's 3 million people in Cambodia by the Khmer Rouge. And Nanjing, the people of China suffered as a result of Japanese occupation. They brutally raped women, killed people because they could, because they have power. And you can cover the truth out. But it still happened, and there's still victims, and their suffering continues. And it's for us to remind people. And the key thing here is never again. One thing that's missing here is World War I and World War II. Never again is the model for Remembrance Day that's coming up next month. We suffered 2 world wars where the whole world seemed to be involved. And after World War I, we said never again. It happened, and then it happened World War II, and then we had the Korean War, and then we had a Spanish Civil War, and then all these other atrocities have occurred. So we always say it's not going to happen again, and unfortunately, this is why we say in history, I'm a history major as a teacher, those people who are ignorant of the past are going to repeat it. So if we don't know about this, we don't study about it, we don't acknowledge it, we're going to make the same mistakes. There's going to be more genocides. And there are more genocides we'll be talking later on that people are not even going to think of as genocides. Like since these ones here, we've had the genocide with the Rohingyas, we had the genocide in Iraq, the Yazidi women, we had the genocide committed by Al-Qaeda, 9/11, genocide committed by ISIS. How many people were killed, slaughtered, and brutalized? Okay, another genocide we don't talk about is abortion. Okay. This is a picture of what's called a fetus. But the fetus is a human being. And you can see that this child sucking his or her thumb. I'll show you a video later on called, it's by Evil Cats, it's called Genesis, sorry. Now, you can look at this person here and say, this is not a human being. It lacks that dignity we talked about in my first slide, that we're made in the image and likeness of God. And because you don't want to see this as a human being, you can discard it if you find yourself pregnant. You can say nothing about the fetus being aborted because it's not life. You can do the same thing to females, women. It wasn't until 1921 that they got the right to be citizens. They were chattels before that. Chattel means a property. If your property, if the woman is a property, then the man gets in his head, he can beat her up, treat her like an animal, dog. So we have a lot of abuse because they were considered people. And even though now they're considered people, we still have a lot of domestic abuse. Okay, the Supreme Court of Virginia said back in 200 years ago, Black people were not human beings. And therefore, if they're not human beings, they're animals. And if they're animals, you can enslave them, treat them like slaves because they're not people. And we're still fighting that battle when trying to get people to vote and to register for vote. People are denied that opportunity. They're still fighting that, surprisingly. But this slide here, the encyclical is saying that still genocide is going on. Number of babies are being aborted. Pregnancies are being stopped. The child is being destroyed, killed. It's phenomenal, but we don't talk about it because we don't recognize this image here. This is from Life magazine. I saw this when I was a student, but it's very effective. How can you deny the humanity of this person here? Actually, postal like yourself, euthanasia. We'll spend some time later on talking about euthanasia. In Canada, it's legal to kill someone out of mercy at the end of life. Now it's being expanded to include younger people. If they have some illness that's never going to recover, and if life becomes too much suffering. And it's scary. We have something that, how can I say it? We can oppose euthanasia by using what we call palliation. Accepting death is available or is going to come, but make them as comfortable as possible so that they can approach death with dignity, with love. Palliative care, palliation, yeah. And that's why I have the picture of the Pope here. He's my favorite here, which I'll call two. In his old age, he showed us how to live as an old person. He had Parkinson's disease. He recovered from a sausage tap. He lost a third of his stomach. But he showed us how to live and how to treat people in their old age. Okay. We'll talk more about euthanasia and abortion later on in the course. Actually, opposed to dignity of the human person, mutilation, torture, oppression. Okay. Anyone know what FGM stands for? Yeah, I first encountered this situation when I was a student at University of Toronto. And the first time it came up. FGM stands for female genital mutilation. Young girls, before they become mature and get the first period, in some cultures, especially in Africa, were getting circumcised to control their sexual activity and to make it very difficult for them to think about it. And this started way back 40 years ago, still prevailing. They don't talk about it. The sad thing is, it's happening here now in certain communities in Toronto, in GTA, Richmond Hill, Vaughan, New York region. It's done very quietly. It's part of, they think it's part of culture. Some people think it's part of religion, and nothing to do with religion. And young girls at age of 7, 8 are being circumcised. Female circumcision. Okay. Sorry? Well, it's not religion, but they're making it out to be religious. I won't mention right now because I don't want to target a community. Okay, but it's happening. It was happening when I was a student. And it's still an issue, and people are not spending enough time. It's the same thing as we talk about sex trafficking. People's bodies are being destroyed as much as their dignity as human beings are being destroyed because they're being used as sex objects for someone's pleasure in exchange of money for value. Actually, opposing to the human person, torments inflicted on the body and mind. Big Brother is watching you. Anyone know who Big Brother is? Orson Welles, 1984. Wrote a book. And society, we may think we're free, but we're controlled. I showed you Prissy A's video on Autocorrect Humanity. Who's in charge of social media? Who's in charge of your phones? You got big companies, government making money, but big companies controlling what goes on social media. And what's our biggest danger about our phones? We're being tracked. Our lives are not as free as we think we are. Someone's watching us. They're creating a big profile of you. They know everything about you. They know you more than you know yourself. Because every single search you've done is recorded somewhere. And they know what your interests are. I'll give you an example. 4 or 5 years ago, I was trying to create a power representation in Hinduism. And I looked up Ganesha, which is the Hindu god who is the remover of obstacles, the boy with the elephant head. So I just looked, Googling different images. And for the last 3 or 4 years, I get these emails from Pinterest and others. Oh, what do you think about this picture of Ganesha? What about this Ganesha? So how did they know I was interested in Ganesha? Well, somebody tracked me and are following me online and sending me all this stuff. And I get advertising, buy this Ganesha statue, buy this Ganesha painting. So now everybody wants to. You Google something, they know you're interested. Also, you get all these emails. Somebody's there watching us. Somebody is like in Plato's cave, manipulating the shadows created by the fire behind us, telling us, hey, what about this? What about that? Big Brother, 1984 is now. Is it our idea or is somebody else's idea implanted in us? And we'll talk more about that later, okay? But the Ezekiel's pointed to these situations. Everything is not the way we think it is. Coercion of the will, forcing someone to something or abstain from doing something against their will. So our minds, our choices are being manipulated. They make us think that we're making our own choices, but they're not. But we do not have our own choices. Somebody is suggesting these ideas, coming up with ideas. Now, this is not new, okay? I come from a traditional Italian family where my father was king of the household, okay? He ruled, because that's the generation he grew up in. And so he always said, I am the head of the household, I'm the king. But as I was growing up, I noticed that my mom was suggesting ideas to him. And then my father said, I have an idea, and this is my decision. And when I realized that, I started cracked up laughing. Every single time my father said something, it wasn't my father saying it. It was my mother. My mother was the true power. But she made my dad feel like he was the boss. Okay? My favorite line from My Big Fat Greek Wedding, when they're talking about the role of the man, the woman, the marriage, the man is the head, but the woman is the neck. And the neck tells the head which way to go, and the head never tells the neck what to do. Now, I don't want to be sexist, okay? I think it should be equality between the man and the woman, the husband and the wife. But that's the culture sometimes people believe in. Okay? So be careful of people who say it's your choice. Because it's not your choice. It's their choice that they want you to do. Okay? Actions insult human dignity according to the encyclical Subhuman Living Conditions. Now, this picture is deceptive because last February, March, I took a leave of absence. I went to India. This is what's called, this is called Harvari, which is the slums in Mumbai. In this little area here, there's about 2 square kilometers and about 8 million people. And everyone has a very small little place, one room place. But in fact, Google and Amazon came here to study. This is a network of independent businesses, all interconnected, recycling stuff, producing stuff, and it's incredible. We'll talk about it later on. But from a distance, it looks like slums. Compared to the buildings around, you have condominiums and apartment buildings, and see the disparity. And so the encyclical points out, look around. You may be comfortable in your house, but there's a lot of areas in the world and your neighbor that are poor. And that shouldn't be. Arbitrary imprisonment. We'll talk a lot about this when we talk about freedom and justice. People are arrested for no reason. Now, we're blessed in Canada, we have a charter of rights, that you have certain legal rights. I believe it's Section 7. A lot of countries, you don't have those rights. You do not have those freedoms. You can be arrested for any reason and you can disappear. This is why we have in our Western tradition from the British the idea of habeas corpus. one of the first laws of the people was habeas corpus. And habeas corpus means show the body. And the reason why they instituted this rule and this law was that if you were arrested within a certain period of time, 24 hours, you have to appear before justice or a judge. And you have to produce the person who was arrested, show the body. And when you come before a judge, first thing they're going to ask you are you okay? Now, if you have bruises and broken bones, obviously something has happened. It may have been at the time of the arrest, or it may have been in jail when nobody's there. So by showing the body's habeas corpus, we can see whether you're being mistreated. And then when you have all the rights that we treasure, like the right to a lawyer, representation, a right to bail before trial, a trial date, etc. Making sure you're being treated properly, humanely. So, but in a lot of parts of the world, you may end up in jail, you may be forgotten, never to be seen again, or you may disappear. Oh, they were arrested, but they may have been dumped in the ocean, killed, buried somewhere, burnt, whatever. So in our tradition, habeas corpus means show the body, show us who you have arrested, make sure that they're okay, and how you're going to deal with them. So the simple saying is, that's not happening in a lot of places in the world, so we got to be careful. Deportations. People are forced to flee where they live. We've had lots of refugees come here. The recent ones have been the Syrians. Before that, it was the Indians from Africa, and before that was the Vietnamese. Then we have Iraqis, a whole bunch of people. Now, this is an Indian family from Uganda, and they were kicked out by Idi Amin and forced to flee the country only because of their skin color. They're brown. One of these people could have been my wife, because my wife came to Canada as a refugee from Uganda. My wife is third generation African from India. So her great grandfather went to Tanzania to work when the British were building the railways. They were merchants. My father-in-law, my wife's father, was born in Africa. My wife was born in Africa too. My wife speaks fluent Swahili, or as they call it, Kiswahili. At a certain point, they moved to Uganda for business. While they were living in Uganda, Idi Amin took all the people of Indian descent out of the country. They were given 1 month's notice, pack the stuff, sell the stuff, and get out of the country. And so she came to Canada as a refugee. Slavery, another insult to human dignity. Slavery. These are cotton pickers. That's where we get the idea, what cotton picking moment, which means a long time. They were essentially enslaved so they could pick cotton to make linens in the linen industry. And they're denied the rights. And again, because Supreme Court of Virginia said these aren't people, they're not human beings, you can do what you want with them. You can buy, you can sell, you can rent them. You can sexually abuse them because they're nothing. This is what the civil rights movement was fighting against, freedom for people. Now, all the pictures I've shown you so far, the threat to dignity, if you take what we've studied in Emmanuel Levinas, look at their faces, including the fetus. How can you deny them humanity? How can you deny them dignity unless you don't want to look at them? You don't want to accept that they're human beings and dignified because they have been given a soul of intellect and will from God. Prostitution. This is the female version. It's the male version too, and it's also child version as well. Exploiting people for their bodies, for the sexual pleasures that come from their bodies in exchange of value, whether it be money or drugs. Abusing people. Another insult to human dignity. Selling of women and children. These are Taziks from Iraq, different group, and ISIS bought and sold these women. It captured these women, killed the men, and bought and sold and rented the women, became sex slaves. They are owned by the ISIS fighters as a reward for fighting. Disgraceful working conditions. Even in Canada, we still have this problem. Sweatshops, work situations that are dangerous. As teachers, we go through an annual in-service on making sure that we're working in a safe place and we're doing safe things. So for example, Mr. Servillo pointed out a couple of days ago that when teachers walk in the hallway, we have to wear the face shields. In the class, because we're social distance, we're okay. We were doing it for 4 or 5 days. He reminded us that we should, making the place as safe as possible. We have all these jars of soaps and everything. Safety is important. We're trying our best, and you guys are trying your best, and we're doing it all good together. Okay? But if you look at the cartoon, there's accidents waiting to happen. Puddle that hasn't been cleaned up, I guess, that can fall, carrying too many loads, working too close to that big pot or something, iron or something, ladder that's shaking over there. On the left side here, it's whatever is being held in the shelves is about to crumble or workmanship. This person here is using a saw on a piece of wood with his lap. When he gets through the wood, what's he going to get to his legs? So this is a nice poster it's saying that the last thing you're concerned about is safety. The only thing you're concerned about is production, making use of things, okay? Doing things, the economy, the job. Okay? Culture of death. Hello? Okay, so all these things the Pope describes as a culture of death, where the only thing that's important in society is efficiency, doing the job. So I have a cartoon here just to add some humor. I'm getting tired of your strong arm tactics around here, Garfield. Remember, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And Garfield says, but in the meantime, the strong will make a pretty comfortable living. Okay. Which takes us into our next stage, which is going to be looking at what the Pope calls a culture of life. All these insults to our humanity, to each other, create a culture of death and destruction, of utility, of pleasure, but not, and disregard the essence of the value of each person's dignity, because they're created in the image and likeness of God. So this is what I want to show you today. McDonaldization. So this is going to be your journal for today. Okay, we're going to watch this short video. Hope it still works. Hope it's still out there. And it's by George Ritzer. And has to do with efficiency. Okay, so let's slide up. How many of you work for McDonald's? Okay. Do you know anyone who's worked for, at McDonald's? And how did they describe the work there? Okay, words of insight. Okay, Andrew says you become a robot. Okay, so McDonald's is all about efficiency. We all become robots. Okay, so let's watch this video. So it's called McDonald's. You don't have to put theories. McDonald's theory. So I'll play this video and then I'll stop and see if there's any questions from everyone else. Let's see if it works. Okay, is it on? Is those of you who are online, is it on? I just want to make sure that it's coming through. It is? Excellent. Okay, so let's watch this short video and see what happens. And then you're gonna have lots of time to talk about this in your journal.
During the 19th century,
Sorry. I can't get on the big screen here. My IT person's back, thank you. For the class. Oh, that thing again. Great.
sociologist Max Weber developed the rationality principle.
Thank you,
Which is the
Andrew.
During the 19th century,
Why is the sound not coming in? Okay. I lost the screens again.
Oh no. Okay, well that works. Ah. Okay, it should be fine.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Andrew.
During the 19th century, sociologist Max Weber developed the rationality principle, which is the acceptance of rules, efficiency, and practical results as an important aspect of formal organizations and bureaucracies. At the end of the 20th century, sociologist George Ritzer found a new model for the rationality principle, the Golden Arches.
Weber argued that the bureaucracy was the model of the rationalization process. But it seemed to me when I thought about rationalization at the end of the 20th century, that really the fast food restaurant was a better model for his process. And so that led me to focus on McDonald's and McDonaldization. McDonaldization is defined as the process by which the principles that lie at the base of the fast food restaurant are coming to dominate more and more sectors of society and more parts of the world. There are four basic principles of McDonaldization. The first is efficiency, which means that you look for the best route to whatever goal it is that you have in mind. The second is predictability, that things are the same from one time to another time or one place to another place. The third is calculability, or an emphasis on quantity rather than quality. And the fourth is an emphasis on non-human technology rather than human technology. And so what we see is the taking of skills away from people and building them into these technologies.
These principles have expanded into other segments of our lives. Exercise, shopping, video rentals, reading, education, and even church services have all been modified to fit our McDonaldized society.
McDonaldization would not have spread throughout society and throughout the world if it did not have a variety of positive consequences. We want some efficiency, we want some predictability. It's just that when those become so predominant that they drive everything else out, that everything becomes predictable. It's not that I'm arguing that we shouldn't have any McDonaldization. It's just I think what we've seen in the last 50 years or so is McDonaldization gone wild.
sorry,
In 1993,
wrong one.
George Spitzer published his book titled McDonaldization of
No, we're over here. Okay, so we're back here, I think. Okay, so that's McDonaldization. So I'm gonna actually do a journal. This is the essence of our culture of death that we society that we live in right now, where, as Andrew said, we all become robots. And by becoming robots, we lose our individuality, our uniqueness. We are simply part of an assembly line. And again, this is the image of society that we've become. We may think we're free, but we're not. We're part of this whole mechanization. Okay? So that's going to be your journal. And this, I think, epitomizes what Pope John Paul II is saying, is that it takes away our dignity. It's an insult to our dignity as human beings. If you ever worked at McDonald's, speed is important. First time I discovered this is I went to get a cup of coffee through a drive-through, and I noticed there was a clock right beside the person who was serving me. And I asked, what's the clock for? So we have a certain amount of time to get this product to you. If it doesn't, it gets recorded. And then we get questioned because we're too slow. So you become a machine. And that's the whole part I did. And this is what the Pope is saying in terms of we're losing our human dignity. Okay, let's see the next one. Culture of death, war of the powerful versus weak. So I have an image here of David and Goliath. And we're all Davids against Goliaths. And it becomes so hopeless sometimes that we might as well just go along with everything. We can't fight all the big companies and the governments and the media, etc. It's a battle. But and who will win society? The powerful. Who will lose? Those who are weak. We have story of Cain and Abel. Let's see if I can get this one going. We already talked about this, right? Yeah, I showed you a video on Cain and Abel a couple of days ago. Did I show this? Okay. Let's see.
Adam and Eve had the first child ever to be born on earth after God's creation. When she gave birth to Cain, she said, "With the Lord's help, I have produced a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother and named him Abel. When they grew up, Abel became a shepherd while Cain became a farmer. When it was time for the harvest, Cain presented some of his crops as a gift to the Lord. But Abel gave the Lord his best firstborn lamb. The Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but he did not accept Cain and his gift. This made Cain very angry. "Why are you so angry?" the Lord asked Cain. "You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you." One day, Cain said to his brother, "Let's go out into the fields." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother and killed him. Afterward, the Lord asked Cain, "Where is your brother, Abel?" "I don't know," Cain responded. "Am I my brother's keeper?" The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are cursed and banished from the ground, which has swallowed your brother's blood. No longer will the ground produce good crops for you, no matter how hard you work. From now on, you will be a homeless wanderer on the earth." Cain replied to the Lord, "My punishment is too great for me to bear. You have banished me from the land and from your presence. You have made me a homeless wanderer. Anyone who finds me will kill me." The Lord replied, "No, For I will give a sevenfold punishment to anyone who kills you. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain to warn anyone who might try to kill him. So Cain left the Lord's presence and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Adam and Eve had a
Okay, we'll stop there. Where is my meat? There it is. Nope. Okay. Okay. A couple of things to take away by way of just briefly is number one, Cain and Abel are brothers. What came before Cain and Abel? Like what tension was created between them? Anyone? Why did that? Why was Cain? Why is there friction between Cain and Abel? Yes.
For Abel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because Abel is always have a gift to give his plans, the what he because Abel is have a person to God, and God is too happy to Abel.
Very good.
So Cain is feel jealousy to Abel because God is only love Abel.
Well, very good. God thinks that no, Cain thinks that only Abel is loved by God, so he gets jealous.
Yes.
Very good. I think it's Louisa. Thank you very much. So he gets jealous, so he wants to do something about that. So he gets rid of his brother. He kills his brother. Respects his brother, not realizing that God loves him too. But it's not a question of one offering better than the other. It is that we all can be loving towards God. Okay. Thank you. Okay, let's go on. Cain and Abel's brothers and sisters keepers. God gives everyone freedom. God gives us just enough to seek him and never enough to fully find him. To do more would inhibit our freedom, and our freedom is very dear to God. God entrusts us to one another. We are all our brothers and sisters keepers. Doesn't mean that we own them. That doesn't mean that we should boss them around or rule them. But we should look after them. And we should definitely not hurt anyone because they're different, or we assume that they're different. God creates us as relational people, not as solitary people. Therefore, you have to be open and at the service of the other. Cain and Abel were brothers. They should support and helping each other rather than doing their own thing. There's a contradiction of Declaration of Human Rights. Today, never in the history of humanity have we evolved a society that respects human rights. We have lots of charters of rights, constitutions, laws, tribunals that protect human beings. But it only recognizes the rights of persons who are autonomous, who are independent and free, who are mature, who are human beings, or who are on the verge of developing autonomy, becoming free. If you're 16 in my class, you're immature. If you're 17, you're more mature than a 16-year-old, but you're still immature when it comes to trusting you with voting for the leader of the country or the province or the city. that happens at 18. And just because it happens at 18 doesn't mean that you're mature. It means biologically, chronologically, you are of mature age. Maturity comes with the heart and the mind. And those who are able to communicate. So we have here people who are self-sufficient, people who are unique, people who have autonomy, and people who have independence. And this is the individuals we talked about a couple of days ago. Our society finds individuals who are autonomous and free. But there's no room in our world to give rights to the unborn. Anyone want to know what this is? Yeah, ultrasound of a baby. You saw that picture of a fetus earlier from Life magazine. This is an ultrasound. When my wife was pregnant, we have ultrasounds of the babies. And we show our children, we have a daughter and a son, we show them what they looked like before they were born. And you can make out the head, ultrasound, and the hand and the nose, etc. And that's a human being. Personally, for me, with the abortion issue, this picture would solve 90% of abortions. Because if a person's going to have an abortion, and if you make it mandated that part of the process of informed patient rights, that you see what is happening to you before an abortion, so see what it is that's being aborted. If you have problems with your lungs, it's only right that you see the x-ray of your lungs to see if it's clogged up or there's a tumor. It's called informed patient rights. And someone's going to have an abortion if they were to see this. And also, along with this picture comes sound. You can actually hear it. And today, they also have it in color and something called 4D, which I've never seen. It exists. You can also get videos of the ultrasounds. If a person were to see this before having an abortion, that would solve the abortion problem. Because how could you abort something like this? Just like we saw the Life magazine picture in color, how could you deny that thing its rights, its humanity, its dignity? So this for me is important. And when I told the kids, they're amazed. That they see what they look like before they're born, and that life did not become life when they were born. That life existed before they were born. When I show you the Genesis video, you'll see it more clearly. But for me personally, this is the truth of what's happening. You can deny it, you can ignore it, so it doesn't take away the fact that this is a human being and it made an image and likeness of God from the moment of conception, and it's in the development stage. Just you're not 18, can't vote. This child is not yet out. And what's interesting about human beings is that of all God's creation, we are the most powerful, strong, but when we're born, we are the weakest. It'll take you 11 months before you can walk. Animals can walk very quickly. Some animals are born with covering for being warm. We're born absolutely naked and vulnerable to the elements. We are so dependent at birth and before birth to others that we wouldn't survive much. Leave a baby for a couple of days, it'll die. It needs a lot of care. But it will develop into a mature human being, a autonomous individual, but not there yet. Okay. Contradiction, Declaration of Human Rights, no room in the world for the dying. We'll talk more about this with these days. We don't care. It's not, how should I say it? COVID has affected older people more than younger people because we haven't cared for them. We've dumped them into seniors' homes that are not humane. They're not treated humanely. A lot of them are. There are a lot of seniors' homes, especially with people with dementia, that do a great job. COVID has focused our attention again on those who are the most vulnerable, the old people, and the type of health care they get. Okay. We'll talk more about this later. Those who are weak, no person in a cane, slow, Get away. Hurry up. We're not patient with old people anymore, especially if they're living at home with us. They're slow in their movements, also slow in their ways. Pope John Paul II says there's no room in the world for those at the mercy of others, homeless people. Out of sight, out of mind. It's a whole discussion over the issue we've been talking about, the beggar in the street. This is the same issue we looked at when we looked at change for $1. They're starting to bring in everything that we talked about in the last month together. It's all making more sense now. Why I included those. When the sense of God is lost, Pope John Paul II says, we lose the sense and value of human dignity and life. So I'll just read this for you. When the sense of God is lost, life becomes a mere thing, which man claims or humans claim as his or her exclusive property, completely subject to his or her control and manipulation. Reading here, modernization. Programming, controlling, and dominating life and death. Oppose complete relativism when everything is negotiable, even the first fundamental right, the right to life. Promote a culture of life, outlawing abortion, embryo research, assisted reproduction, mercy killing, euthanasia. So we're in a situation of tension, a struggle between those forces that create a culture of death, that do not respect the dignity of each human person because they're made in the likeness of God, and a culture of life that always keeps in the front of mind the dignity of every human being because they're made in the likeness of God. So this is what the encyclical is talking about. The version I gave you is an abridged version. It's a shorter version. If you want to read the whole encyclical, when you have time, please, I encourage you. I just gave you a summary of it. You are a thought of God. You are a heartbeat of God. To say this is like saying that you have a value which, in a sense, is infinite, that you matter to God in your completely unique individuality. Like I like to say, you're great, God doesn't make junk. And don't ever believe anybody that makes you feel like you're junk or not. Freedom becomes destructive when choices are based on subjective, changeable, selfish interests and opinions and whims. Self is not living as one wishes to live, it is asking others to live as one wishes to live. Oscar Wilde. This is we talked about secularism, our individualist society, our more relativist society, our atheist society, our competitive, commercialized type of society. Freedom becomes constructive when choices made instead of truths about good and evil. Relativism takes over when massive individuals are placed side by side but without mutual bonds. We talked about this. How do you get people to help each other when all they've ever been taught is that they're individuals separate from everybody else? You can't force people to get along and to help each other, to share. We become like Cain and Abel. They're brothers, but they can't get along. They can't live together. One decides that everything is for him. Relativism takes over when we lose common values and trust binding on all. A selfish person is one who cares only for their own pleasures, even if it causes pain to someone else. They have no consideration for anyone else and worry only about their own comfort. Selfish people are well-mannered and nice to everyone, but they are nice only as long as they get something more back in return from the people around them. Okay? So individualism, more relativist, Material competitive society means that we all become like sharks eating the smaller ones. Where all things over when everything is negotiable, open to bargain, even life. Do not forget that true love sets no conditions. It's unconditional. It does not calculate or complain, but simply loves. Pope John Paul II. We can negotiate. Materialism takes over with individualism. Me versus we. Materialism takes over utilitarianism, what is useful. Recognize the fundamental role of pain and pleasure in human life, approves or disapproves of an action on the basis of the amount of pain or pleasure brought about, called consequences, often called as consequentialism, equates the good with the pleasurable and even with pain, asserts that pleasure and pain are capable of quantification and hence of measure. What you have here is, in essence, the ideas of Protagoras that we looked at earlier in the course. It's Protagoras. Do whatever you want as long as you are happy. And don't worry about anybody else but yourself. Materialism takes over when we have permissiveness. Everything is permissible for me, but not everything is beneficial. Everything is permissible for me, but I will not be mastered by anything. So you have here drinks, alcohol. We're free to drink. We can do what we want. We're free to drive. We have a license. And for some people, we're free to drink and we're free to drive at the same time. That causes problems. Materialism takes over when we value being who you are as opposed to what you have. And this is especially true when we look at McDonaldization. As Andrew said, you work at McDonald's and a lot of other areas in our society, you are not a unique individual human being. You are a robot, part of a machine, part of an assembly line. We'll come back to this slide later. Materialism takes over when the quality of life, economic efficiency, consumerism, physical beauty, and pleasure. I'll let you just enjoy the image. People are not valuable for who they are, but what they have, what they do, what they produce. This is a Venn diagram on the left. In the middle, which is common to being and doing as a person. But on one side, it's just the doing part, and the other one is who you really are.
So, teacher.
Question?
So I think you are not in present.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sorry, teacher. I think you are not in present.
Is it not presenting anymore?
Yeah,
Yeah, you are not presenting.
we can't see the PowerPoint.
I'm sorry. Thanks. Thank you. What happened here? Oh, press on this. Oh, there. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, sir.
Thank
It's been
you.
like that for like 20 minutes.
Oh my, sorry. You can hear me, but you can't see pictures.
Yes.
An error has occurred here. Okay, sorry about that. I wish. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. Sorry. Okay, where's my presentation now? Here we are. Okay, so let's go back here. Sorry, you can see I'm a dinosaur. Okay, so I guess the last one there. So let's go over just quickly. Cain and Abel. God gives everyone freedom. God entrusts us to one another. This is what we learn from the story of Cain and Abel. And this is what Pope John Paul II is talking about, culture of life. God creates us as relational, be open, and at the service of others. So we are all brothers and sisters. Contradictions, we pride individualism. We talked about this already. Sorry. No room in the world for the unborn. This is an ultrasound. No room in the world for those who are old and dying or dying. Those who are weak, slower, homeless. This is the gospel of life, opposes relativism and culture of death and promotes a culture of life. I'll let you catch up on this later. Freedom can be destructive. Choice between good and evil, and good and truth is hidden and evil is allowed and encouraged. Relatives over when massive vigils are placed side by side but without mutual bonds. It's hard to get people to work together, just like it's hard to get people to wear masks. We live in a world of sharks eating smaller fish, competition. You will win, they will lose, guaranteed. Everything is negotiable, open to bargain, even life. It's me, not we. It's sad what happened to the Kilburgers and the Me Too organization. Utilitarianism, this is the idea of utility for pleasure, use people. Personal society, everything's permitted because we have freedom. We talked about having versus being. We'll talk more and more about this in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe our theme for our next couple of units. Materialism takes over when the quality of life, economic efficiency, consumerism, physical beauty, and pleasure take over. I'll let you go through that later. That's the Venn diagram. Person in the middle, being and doing, who we are and what we can do. All should be included, especially the being part. It's not just about what we can do, what we can produce. That's the whole purpose of materialization. It's only what you can produce. Your individuality, your being, who you are, is not important. If you can't do it, time to move on. We'll replace it with somebody else. Materialism harms interpersonal relationships. When you think about money, about being number one, or about being socially popular, you destroy our relational characteristics that God created us as relational people. Materialism, personal dignity becomes functional and useful. Materialism leads to sexuality becomes depersonalized and exploited. What is sexual exploitation? It is a form of sexual abuse. It happens when an individual forces, convinces, or engages another person, often a youth, in any kind of sexual activity in exchange for money, drugs, food, shelter, or other reasons. Abusers often use lies and dishonesty to lure the victim into situations of sexual exploitation. No under 18 can consent to exploitation. Sexually exploited kids are not criminals, they are victims. So materialism glorifies sexual exploitation because you can, and you have the freedom. And it's consensual. Suffering is to be avoided, suppressed, or eliminated, not seen as occasions to possible growth. So under materialism idea, you want to minimize suffering, get rid of it, or deal with it as much as you can, but never live with it. After pain, there's a rainbow. After a storm, there's calm. After the night, there is a morning. And after an end, there's a new beginning. Positive signs of work in the world today. The cycle is not all doom and pessimistic. The cycle at the end of the excerpt from Janet Smith says that there are positive things, there are good things. there are salts and lights. There are people who are acting like salt and light. We talked about those two concepts. Children are seen as a gift in marriage. There are a lot of people who see children as gifts. You're all gifts. You're not a burden. You're not a drain on money and wealth. You're gifts to your parents. You're gifts to your families. Mothers who are supportive. It's interesting that as a father, I don't have the same value in my children's eyes as my wife. And there's a reason for that. My wife carried the children for 9 months each. And so whenever my children are distressed, what they want is a hug from my wife first, and then I'm second. I'm okay with that. Because as a father, they had to sort of adopt me. They knew I was there. They sensed I was there. Only when they were born, and I first carried my children, that they could actually have contact with me. But with my wife, they were there for 9 months. And whenever you are stressed out, what do? You want to hug for your mom. You call out for your mom. And you want to place your arm and hear her heart. And when you hear her heart, you have this new prenatal experience of having that security, confidence of listening to the heart of your mom, and then everything will be okay. All right? Medical science gives hope for unborn and dying. We can have surgeries. If a child is going to have a heart condition, you can have a heart operation before you're even born. It's phenomenal. There are a lot of bad things being done with technology, but some good things are being done with technology. And we can deal with illnesses, and we can prolong people's life and give them some sense of quality of life, not simply quantity of life. There are some people who put their talents and gifts for others. MSF stands for Médecins Sans Frontières in French, Doctors Without Borders. These are doctors who go all over the world, give their free time, especially in disaster areas, places where there's a lot of poverty and conflict, set up tents and do good work. The nephew of a person I worked with worked with Doctors Without Borders in Afghanistan, worked with the Taliban to provide health care for the people. There are caregivers of the sick, elderly, and disabled. They're finally being recognized in our society because of the COVID crisis. That these people are heroes, taking care of the old people, taking care of sick people in seniors' homes and hospitals. That's a positive sign. They finally get the recognition of the good work that they do to keep those who are really vulnerable. Quality of life. Lots of happiness and good happening in our society that we count them as our blessings. Ecology. We are starting to take care of the world that God gave us and created for us. We call this stewards of creation. And so we are starting to see the damage we're doing to our world and trying to make it a better world. Life is always good and sacred. It comes from God. We are God's gift, an imprint of love. Each of us is a masterpiece of God's creation. Respect life. Human dignity. Belief in the inherent dignity of the human person is the foundation of all Catholic social teaching. Grounded in the idea that persons are created by God in God's image and likeness, thus human life is sacred. Human dignity is the starting point of a moral vision society. If we all have this dignity, then we should treat everybody with the same idea that they have the same dignity that we have. Life is always good and sacred. It's inviolable. No one can claim to destroy directly an innocent human life. Things have a price and can be for sale, but people have a dignity that is priceless and worth far more than things. This is our present Pope Francis. I'll come back to this later. Reasons given for an abortion: protect health, decent standard of living, terrible living conditions, pressure from father, parents, or friends. It's just a survey that was done, why people have abortions. I'll just leave it there and come back to it when we talk about abortion and euthanasia. And here's the stages, sort of a summary of the video genesis. From up here, from conception all the way, and the idea is always life. No one gives this life because it already has it. Euthanasia, and we'll talk more about this later, an act or mission of itself or by intention causes the death without the purpose of eliminating suffering. So if someone is sick, you have two choices. On the left side, euthanasia. On the right side is palliative care or palliation. False mercy, killing the person whose suffering we cannot bear. Again, I'll just bring it up now. We'll talk more about it later on in the unit. False mercy, but true compassion means to share another's pain. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Colossians. Just summary now. Culture of life is being versus having. Watch your thoughts, they lead to attitudes. Watch your attitudes, they lead to words. Watch your words, they lead to actions. Watch your actions, they lead to habits. Watch your habits, they form your character. Watch your character, it determines your destiny. Okay, in that sense, this is going to be your homework assignment on the character charts I'm going to ask you to produce. You have a choice, money or happiness. Culture of life, people versus things. Love people, not things. Collect memories, not stuff. Indifference versus concern for others. The opposite of love is not hatred, but indifference. Elie Wiesel, survivor of the Holocaust. And Nelson Mandela, a fundamental concern of others in our individual and community lives would go a long way in making the world a better place we so passionately dreamt of. Two more. Culture of life, rejection versus acceptance of others. And that's it. Okay. It's a lot there. A lot of questions now. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. And let's see what we have here in questions. Here we go again. Give me a second. Yeah, could you help me here? Oh, is that it? Okay. Yeah, taking a break here. Okay, we're just going to take a 5-minute break and then I'll answer some of the questions here that you've posed, a lot of them, eh? Okay. Okay, for David, the question on the 7 capital sins and the 7 Christian virtues. The assignment is the same thing. Define each of the vices and each of the virtues, and then insert an image or a picture. Okay, and then we go. Do we need an image for everyone? Michelle, yes. Yes. Jade, examples for each of them. So copy and paste images. Nathan, George Orwell, 1984, excellent. Everyone should read that book. It was written a long time ago, but it's very relevant today. Thank you, Louise, for telling me that. I was not online. Ben, the three charts after the character package. Okay. So take a 5-minute break, yes?
What are you writing?
Oh, for the journal, you have a question? You can watch the McDonaldization video and just write whatever you want to write about it. Is that true, or is it false, or is it both true and false? Are we, as Andrew said, a bunch of robots? What do you think about it? The encyclical talks about a society that is based on efficiency. They're not important. You do think you do it well, and you do it cheaply. And if you can't, I get rid of you, get somebody else who will do it. Any other questions? So in the remaining time that we have, you can work on your journal first and work on your charts. Okay, so you define each of these terms and look at the back. Yeah. What do you think that's there? Oh. Okay. Did you get a copy of the virtue and vice chart? At the back of the package I gave you. Yeah, that one. Yes, you have a definition there. You didn't get one, did you? There's one. Yeah. She gets part of definition. Some of you may not have copy of definition and not you send a character chart through the email too. I'll have to scan it, Elia. Oh, you also have your package is next to as you enter the school, there is a brown folder with your textbook. I'll have to see if I can send you a scanned copy of that for you because you still haven't got the package. And I also got the other assignment that you sent me. Thank you. Sir, is the journal opinion based? Say all your journals are your opinions, your reflections of any topic idea we talked about. For Ben, the three charts are after your character package. One's on it's three different charts. Okay. Oh boy, that was a long time, sorry. Long PowerPoint. Okay. The last little while, work on your journal and send that to me, and then work on your charts after that. Any other questions about the slide presentation? This will form the basis of our next 2 weeks of classes. We'll keep referring back to this. You guys good? Okay, I'll send you your August reports in a second. Okay, good. Thank you. I showed you the test. You got it. You guys have seen the test, haven't you? I showed you the test last time. Okay. Okay. Let me do your test. So I showed you the test.
Oh,
Oh, you want to see it? Yeah. Go ahead.
it's good. The last is the
Yeah, the Aristotle cantilever.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. There we go. Please. Switch it on.